Hello, I'm Hardt and this is Does Logistics Matter? A podcast on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics. Answering yes to the question today are Roeske and Edwin Wenink of Hardt Hyperloop. On this episode, we talk about Hyperloop as a new modality and how it will completely change supply chains as we know them. Please enjoy my conversation with Roeske and Edwin Wenink. Rick, Edwin, welcome to the podcast. My first question is always, does logistics matter?
Yeah, absolutely. Logistics matters, definitely.
Good. Then you guys are on the right show. For the listeners, please introduce yourselves.
Yeah, my name is Roeske. I now work more than a year at Hardt Hyperloop, and I'm the project manager of the Cargoloop Holland project. And that's our project that I think we're going to talk about in the upcoming minutes or hours, maybe.
For sure, it's a subject that we can talk hours about.
Hello, my name is Edwin Wenink. I'm a senior advisor at Hardt, and I have a background in logistics and supply chain.
Good. The company is called Hardt Hyperloop, after a Hyperloop, the invention by Elon Musk. What is Hardt?
So Hardt is the Dutch company that is working on the Hyperloop technology. We are just over the phase of a startup, and now we are a scale-up. And we are a company with about 40 people located in Delft. And we are, let's so to say, responsible to get the Hyperloop working in Europe. This company started in 2017 when 4 students won one of the Hyperloop competitions organized by Elon Musk. They came back from the United States with the idea to definitely do something more with Hyperloop than only winning this competition. So they started the company Hardt Hyperloop. And by then, this startup grew until what we now are. And now we are basically developing a whole ecosystem in the Netherlands, but definitely also outside of the borders of the country to get the Hyperloop from the ground. And that means on one hand that we are pushing the technology to be developed, but on the other hand also make sure that we are able to, let's so say, to build the system. So to make sure that there is a spatial integration possible of Hyperloop, that there is an ecosystem that is working, that we standardize the technique. So much more than only developing the technique, but more to really get it from the ground.
Okay. Can you explain the technology behind Hyperloop? So what's the idea behind the Hyperloop?
Yeah, Hyperloop basically combines 3 different techniques into one transportation modality. The first type of technique that we use is a magnet levitation system that allows the vehicles to travel without any friction inside the system. And that's very advantageous when you compare it, for example, with trains or trucks. They always make contact with the rails or the road, and that causes a lot of energy loss when you are accelerating or driving at high speed. The second advantage that we have is that we use a low pressure environment, and this low pressure environment reduces the amount of air friction and therefore also causes very low use of energy to transport via the Hyperloop system. And the third advantage is that you are in a protected environment, so you don't have any problems with, for example, leaves on the tracks or snow on the road or any other cause that would cause delay in the system, because you're completely protected from the weather, from other external conditions. And these 3 things combined together is what we call Hyperloop, and that's what we're developing here.
So, and when we talk about Hyperloop, that's the name of the full system.
Yeah.
And when you talk about Cargoloop, that's a Hyperloop system in which you don't transport people. Because I guess that was the original thought that Elon Musk had of transporting people. But in the Cargoloop concept, we're transporting cargo.
Yeah, that's correct. I would say that Cargoloop is a specific application of Hyperloop technology, but indeed, as you explained, dedicated towards cargo transportation. And we thought that if you could transport people via the Hyperloop system, why not cargo? So we thought about Cargo Hyperloop, which can easily be said as Cargoloop.
Nice. So you are looking into a first full-scale Hyperloop trajectory in the Netherlands. And it's a trajectory running from Schiphol Airport to the port of Rotterdam.
More or less, yes. We started, I must say that indeed this is a part of the trajectory that we are currently looking at, but it's part of a broader development that is might be nice to describe. So if you look to where we are now as a company, but also as a nation towards Hyperloop development, we see that we are on the next stage of developing the Hyperloop system. And therefore, we launched recently the Hyperloop development program. And this program is a whole range of developments in the upcoming years that will take place in the Netherlands to get the Hyperloop to the market. And as part of this Hyperloop development program, for example, is our test center in Groningen that we perhaps can speak about later on as well, but also a project that we call the Cargoloop Holland. And Cargoloop Holland is my project. I'm the project leader of this project. And within Cargoloop Holland are all the researches that we need to do to show the feasibility of Cargoloop in the Netherlands. And as part of that, so we go from the top of the umbrella all the way down, we see that one of the possible tracés that we can follow is indeed from Schiphol towards Rotterdam. But 2 or 3 other ones that are in the same study are, for example, to go from the Maasvlakte to the Westland, from the Westland towards Rotterdam to the fruit and vegetable hubs that are located south of the city, but also towards, for example, the port of Amsterdam, towards Aalsmeer, which has very big logistics centers. So what we basically try to do is to combine different logistics centers and different main ports together in this program, in the in the Cargoloop Holland program. And in that program, we're going to show basically the feasibility of this Cargoloop project.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, what are the main benefits? You spoke about. Well, there's always in the Netherlands I must laugh when I think about the leaves on the tracks.
Oh, yes.
You know, if it's autumn, there are leaves on the tracks, and then suddenly the trains go crazy.
Yeah.
When there's snow and ice, there's sometimes trucks can't move. So obviously those are some benefits.
Yeah.
Are there other?
Well, we always like to think that leaves on the tracks is a very Dutch problem. Actually, it's not. But let's pause that for another podcast that we can talk hours about. But perhaps we can ask Edwin to answer this question because he is our senior logistics expert.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. I think the main advantages of this system is, first of all, the speediness. You can travel way faster through the, let's say, the cargo.
What's the speed?
Well, we presume that it will be somewhere around between 150 until 400 kilometers, but it heavily depends, of course, on the route and the distance. That's one part. I think also the assurance that your goods will arrive at a certain time is way better, because I think you also mentioned already the point of leaves, but we also have a lot of congestion in the Netherlands, which also causing problems. And I think Rick already mentioned it when he started his explanation about Cargoloop. You don't have any influence of the weather. So if it's snowy or it's very hot or these type of effects, you also will not have. So we think that is a huge benefit. And what you could actually also do by using this system is change the way you organize your logistics, because we are able, let's say, to send more small volumes at the same cost as a full truck. So which basically also gives you the opportunity to get more flow into your supply chain and in your logistics. So we really think that this is a game changer in the way you can organize your logistics from A to Z.
And if we compare the size of a Cargoloop unit, if we compare that to a truck, is it smaller? Is it bigger?
No, it's way smaller. We think that on average, every bot will contain, let's say, 2 full pallets.
Oh, okay.
So it's way smaller. It's more or less the size of a small pickup or a van, something like that.
Okay. Oh, I had this idea of like truck-sized things, but you need a much smaller tube as well. So it's it's easier to create it if the pods are smaller.
If you look at the pod size, then we think that the tube size, the pod size is in the tube, of course, but the tube will be around somewhere between the 2 meters 10. So you can imagine that you also have to work with your different buildup of your pallets, of course, because it's round. So at the end, you are transporting half pallets. But of course, 2 half pallets also full pallets. So in that sense, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But we envision exactly the point that you have, let's say, smaller pods being delivered in fast frequencies. Actually, has the same effect as a truck. And if you look at the capacity, then you can actually have these pods very close to each other in the tube. And that actually has the same capacity as a truck in the same amount of time.
Okay, so it's going to be a system with a lot of pods in there.
Yes.
So is it almost, if you look at these, so I'm getting this image in my head of a package sorting center. In which these packages move close to each other, and they are not on tubes, but on
conveyor belts.
On conveyor belts. Thank you. I was looking for the word. And they're shot into all sorts of directions. Is that the idea?
If you look to the vision, what we have, we say as Hardt that our vision is to connect the whole continent with in the year 2050. So all the supply chains in Europe will be connected via Hyperloop. And then I always envision a picture in my head with like big arteries over the whole continent, where the vehicles, the pods, will follow up at very close distance to each other, so a very high capacity. Basically, you can also envision like a highway with on and off ramps, and then when a vehicle gets closer to its destination, it's leaving the highway Hyperloop, the highway Cargoloop, and then it comes in a more dense but slower local network, so to say, where it travels perhaps at lower speeds towards its end destination. So I think the comparison that you make with this conveyor belt, in which the parcels or the suitcases or whatever is transported over it go at very high speed in one direction, but when they get close to the destination, they are taken out of this main system and come into a more local system. And I think that's the same way the bolt operation will also work when we have the whole Cargoloop operational, definitely.
Okay, and so. Are there more than one party in Europe working on a Hyperloop or Cargoloop system?
Now we are indeed more commercial parties now working in Europe, and we see that as an advantage, because in this way we can also work together to standardize the technique and the whole system. So via the European Union and also via the partners in other countries, we are looking to work together on developing this whole technique, because we've seen in the past too often that if you don't standardize from the beginning, you will result in basically just in different systems. I always like to mention the example of a train going from the Netherlands towards Belgium that has to change different catenaries at the border. And even worse, if you go to Spain, then the rails are further apart than they are in the Netherlands. So
that was I was thinking about.
Yeah, indeed. And now we have the opportunity to not do this again, to not make this. Well, I wouldn't call it a mistake, because if you look back in the history why these systems grow the way they are nowadays, we can't call that a mistake, because it was just the way it was. But now we have the opportunity to do this right from the beginning. So we're actively looking to the Cargoloop or the Hyperloop companies over the continent to standardize our technique. And we at Hardt, we say we first focus on getting Cargoloop to the market, and that's our strategy to finally bring the passenger Hyperloop also to the market with the same technology, of course.
Yeah, and would passengers in your vision be in the same system as the cargo, or are those different tubes? Is that bigger or?
Yeah, we think that the technique that we will use will be the same, because that's the Hyperloop technique, of course. But at this moment, we are not. Well, I don't dare to say that yes or no that the system is the same size. But I think the passenger system indeed will be bigger. So that means you will have two different Hyperloop systems next to each other. So a big tube for the passenger transportation and a smaller tube for the Cargoloop transportation. And then, people normally often say in this point of the discussion, oh, isn't that weird? And then I'm always explaining that if you look to a highway, then trucks are often in the way of passenger cars because they drive at different speeds, have different characteristics of driving and going from destinations to other destinations. So I don't think it has to be a problem. And as a matter of fact, I actually believe that if you separate the systems, you can get a more beneficial system for transportation of passengers because they often go from city center to city center, and a more optimized transport option for cargo because they often don't go from city center to city center, but more from a logistic hub to another logistic hub.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think if you even look at the railroads today, I think the expansion actually of freight on railroads is in most cases not taking place due to the fact that you already have a lot of passengers trains on those tracks, and that does not mix with the cargo trains. So and by separating them, like Rick explained, is that I think you don't have that problem anymore because you have two different systems. So, and I think this would actually help developing both modalities or part of the modalities in a better way for the future.
You mentioned the Westland, which is flowers and vegetables and fruit. Is that the first focus? Does it make the most sense to do those products or?
Yeah, if you see what Westland now contributes to the Dutch economy, and if you see what kind of transport challenges they have, but also will face in the future, then it indeed makes sense to focus on the Westland area as a start. So that's why we're also actively looking to collaborate with parties that are located in the Westland, but as well towards the main ports where the transport, for example, overseas take place. So yeah, it's very important to start somewhere where it actually does make sense to do so. On the other hand, it's also a very big challenge to start in the Westland because it's a very densely built area with the greenhouses and the logistics, the buildings that are already there, and also with a lot of big cities or villages at least. So it's a very challenging area to start this development, but a very exciting one as well.
Yeah, and I recently read an article that Elon Musk told I think it was the mayor of Miami that for 30 million he would bore a tunnel with his boring company, which is a great name, the Boring Company, that he would do a 2-mile tunnel for 30 million. And before that, the transit authority had made calculations and it would cost, $1 billion. At least. Is the idea for Hyperloop to be largely underground or above ground or?
Yeah, well, at first I definitely admire the positiveness of Mr. Musk. I think it's great that you can challenge the existing world and engineering companies and also your own companies to come up with such new ideas. So we're also, of course, looking to how they do that. And if we look to this case specifically, a part of the Cargoloop Holland project is indeed the spatial integration of the Cargoloop. And the last thing we want is having the Hyperloop going through narrow streets, through neighborhoods where people have the tube in their backyard, so to say. So that's something that definitely will not take place, will happen. And it's also not what we're used to in our Dutch way of doing spatial integration, because we have a very traditional and very nice way of building our country. We let's say we designate zones where you can develop different activities, and we are very proud on this system. We're also internationally known for having this urban planning, spatial planning way of doing this. And I think a big part of this pre-feasibility study is indeed to see how you can actually integrate the Hyperloop in the existing built environment. Because if you see how we can construct Hyperloop, it doesn't really matter if for the technology if we put it underground or above ground. So the system is not accessible to humans, so you don't have to have like emergency exits or service tunnel next to it. So it's very easy to build the system underground where you have to go underground. Think about a sewer system, for example. The ground is already filled with sewer systems with the same diameter as we envision the Cargoloop system. But for the same reason, we can go above ground as well. And there's also an extra advantage that we didn't mention in the beginning of the podcast, but the tube of the Hyperloop is basically already its own infrastructure. So where, for example, for a train, you need an extra viaduct, or you need to build a tunnel, or you need to build another piece of civil engineering infrastructure. For the Hyperloop, we can just say, okay, we have the tube, and that's already the infrastructure itself. It's already its own viaduct or its own tunnel. So therefore, it must be very easy to integrate this either underground or above ground. And of course, we go underground wherever necessary.
Okay. Actually, I wanted to add something else which you mentioned before. Because your question about the Westland, I think if you look at the Westland and if you see the dense population, it's called a glass city, as you know. You know, there are a lot of activities taking place over there, but there's also a lot of truck movement. So if you only look at, let's say, the truck movements for the fruits and the vegetables or for the flowers and the plants, it's enormous in that area. So we really think by starting perhaps one of the first routes from the Westland, for instance, to Maasvlakte or vice versa, then actually we can contribute to the liveliness of that area for the people who live there. So to put it in your words, I think logistics matters then. You know, it really makes the difference in these type of solutions for these type of urban surroundings. So we feel confident that we can contribute to that and really solving some of the already very long and difficult problems of reachability of that area. They have tried all kinds of projects like Fresh Corridor, etc., to remove the containers from the roads. And that has been until now very difficult because you still have that very, very long last and first mile. And I think the interesting thing about Cargoloop is actually that you can build the tubes until, let's say, the logistic hubs like an ABC Westland or an Onderland. You can build it until there. So you're already for the last and first mile, you're already on that premises. And I think that integration makes also this system very unique, where you cannot do that very easily, for instance, with a train or a barge or even with roads, because you cannot put roads anywhere. And like Rick already also mentioned, of course, some parts we can just put on the ground and you don't see it anymore. So I think that's also a huge benefit.
Well, think about the advantage of road safety. If you can take so many trucks off the roads and you will prevent so many causes in which, for example, a cyclist could be hit by a truck. It's like really much.
Yeah, for sure. Rick, you mentioned that there's a large group of companies and organizations now working on the feasibility study for an actual cargo loop. Can you tell some more about that?
Yeah. We as Hardt, we are working with 40 people together here, and we know quite much about Hyperloop development and also a little bit about logistics now due to the contribution of Edwin. But of course, we don't have all the knowledge in this house to develop such a system. So one of the most important pillars, or maybe even the foundation of this whole Cargoloop Holland project, is working together with all sorts of stakeholders that do have a different stake in this system, or at least play a role in developing or building or operating a Cargoloop system. So one of the first steps that we took is to form a big consortium of stakeholders in the Cargoloop Holland project that want to work together with us on this feasibility study. So we reached out to, for example, shippers, to main ports, to municipalities, to provinces, to all sorts of interest organizations, and we asked them to join us doing this Cargoloop Holland study. So basically, we asked them to sign a covenant with us, and this covenant could be seen as a letter of moral support, in which they state that they do believe in the development of Cargoloop in the Netherlands, and also to help us out with providing knowledge from their side into this research that we're going to do. So we didn't start the research yet, but we had a kickoff early January, in which by now 30 stakeholders together expressed their interest in doing this together with us, and it really makes me proud. I'm super happy. I'm super proud on that on what we reached with these group of parties, and also with their enthusiasm. I always say that it's very easy to not join at this moment because so much is unknown. We're really going into a path that we don't really know where it is going to, because there's so much research that needs to be done. But these by now 30 Covenant parties said, okay, we see that we don't know everything yet, but we're willing to invest a little bit of time into finding out where this can go to. And that makes me super happy. And if you look to the names of the parties that signed by now, these are really, really big ones, important ones, very small ones, family ones, but also governments that say, okay, we want to play a role in this. For example, the province of Zuid-Holland, province of Noord-Holland, Schiphol, a few very big shippers that are located either in the Westland or in Aalsmeer. For example, the Dutch Flower Group, Flores Agora. Who else, Edwin?
Yeah, well, we have a lot of companies like Dum & Orange, Best Fresh Group, let's say, also the Greenery. So I think important players for us to really understand what the requirements should be for such a concept. Yeah. I think Rick already mentioned standardization, which is always very important. But still, if you're going to build, let's say, a new system which does not fulfill the needs of the people who should use it or the companies who should use that, then you have a dead system. The people will never work with it, So it should be. We will ask questions: what will be sizing? What should be the temperature control? This type of thing, but also about how can we integrate it in your operations? Because especially the interoperability of these type of systems is so important. Because if the system Cargoloop does not fit into the current way of doing their business, then it will never succeed. So, and therefore, I think. I'm fully with Rick that he said I'm very proud on that. Not on what we have achieved yet, but on the fact that we have a consortium where we can build a feasible system with, because they have the knowledge and they can help us and support us in building this system in such a way that you don't build a solution where at the end everybody says, it's a fantastic technical solution, but in my way of doing business, I cannot use it. So, and this is exactly what we want to overcome. So technology is very good, and we have a lot of intelligent people working with Hardt, but also together with, let's say, the main stakeholders in the industry, we should be able to work on a really fantastic system for the future. Mm-hmm. And I'm very happy with that also.
Yeah. And perhaps the names we mentioned before sound a little bit abstract, but if you buy an apple at a big supermarket, mm-hmm. very big chance that it will be transported with Hyperloop if this consortium succeeds. So that's how tangible it can get.
So you are actually creating a completely new modality, and it makes perfect sense that all parties are getting involved. So you were saying when you eat an apple, it will be transported via Cargoloop. Mm-hmm. So when do you think I can eat my first Cargoloop transported apple? I won't hold you to it.
Well, okay,
but just
with this disclaimer,
I think people would like to know. When will the first goods be transported via Cargoloop, Hyperloop? Do you think?
Yeah. I always learned from Edwin sitting left of me. Or obviously you can't see that if you listen to this podcast, but he's sitting left of me. He always says a good idea is developed within 3 days. What do you always say, Edwin?
I always say...
I didn't really pay attention to what he said. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you, Rick. I always say a good concept, you most likely need 3 weeks. To work out a good project, you need, let's say, 6 months. But the implementation will take you 9 years.
9 years. Yes, I knew that one. Yeah.
Okay.
So if we count from today plus 9 years, it will be 2030.
2030.
And that's why I was making this joke, because we actually believe that we can have a first pilot route, because we think we have to start with a beta route or a pilot route within 9 or 10 years from now. When this feasibility study is finished, we can take next steps towards development of this first pilot route that we are going to identify as part of the feasibility study. And afterwards, we might already dream or think about construction of the system.
Yeah, and to add on that, I think the challenges in these type of systems is at the end of the day never in the technology or in the process to get it done, but really in the mental shift for people and organizations to work with this type of new solutions, because they need to adapt. They need to adapt their operations. They need to adapt the sequence in ordering, these type of things. So it's at the end not only, let's say, a pure technical thing. I think technically we already proven that it has the levitation. It can change tracks. The only thing we could not prove until now is the speed. That is what we are going to do in Groningen. But I think you need to, let's say, incorporate in the current way of doing business. And so you need to, let's say, educate everything again, new in the supply chain, how this modality will fit in. And that's a part of the 9 years. Not only the building time, but also, let's say, this change. And I think we learned a lot about innovation in supply chains. And I also did some projects in the last years. And that's why I developed this rule of thumb. And I think when we work together, and we already have so many people on board, which is actually very positive, because actually the mental shift is already starting from the first workshop we are going to do with this group of people. Because then they will learn and we will learn from them. And then we can start to think how we can, let's say, adjust everything in and around our operations, but also in cities, in provinces, and make sure that at the end, in 10 years, you get your Apple via the Cargoloop.
Yeah, 9, please.
9.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this. 9 years is long. Don't make it 10.
I was smuggling a little bit with this year. So I'm like, okay, 2030. I'm still in 2021. So okay, you get it in 9 years.
Okay, cool. No, I'm very excited about this project. This is one of the most advanced new innovations that's really going to change logistics and how supply chains operate. So I'm very much looking forward to see this project progress.
To add on that, I think one of the most exciting thing about this project is I think this is the first modality which is actually able to cope with the changing demands from consumers. So if you look at e-commerce, where you see these very small supply chains or purchasing change, basically between the consumer and the producer, which basically you can buy something with Nike today. But if you look at logistics, the logistics system behind it or below it is still the old-fashioned way. But with this system, actually, you can also change the supply chain and the logistics. And I think and actually then again, it makes also sense again that you only have to fit in 2 or perhaps 2.5 pallets in one of such a bot, because you can immediately connect the producer with almost the consumer around the corner. And I think there's a development which no other modality until now was able to fulfill that need. So that really makes it exciting for me. Because I think the world is changing and we need also new logistics concepts which actually are able to cope with that change. And actually, we can also speed up other processes. Look at air freight. Air freight in Europe. Partly, a lot of it, for instance, is trucked. For instance, even from Italy to Schiphol and then intercontinental flown. Can you imagine the effect on the speediness, or also for air freight? If you can send that package with a Cargoloop to Schiphol, you save days. So.
Yeah, because that would take, at top speed of 400 kilometers an hour, then
and it doesn't have to stop because there are no drivers.
No.
So also from that perspective, from a legislation perspective, you have huge advantages. Yeah. And of course, you get people then say that's bad for drivers because they lose their job. But the problem is we don't have enough drivers anymore in this country. So there's a shortage of drivers. So I think even in that sense, this solution actually brings a solution to that problem. So
yeah, and and there have been so many developments that people said this is going to cost everybody their job, and still it's everybody gets different jobs.
No, we still need operators. We still need people who are loading, unloading, let's say, the bots. And I think, to be quite frank, I think the most crucial processes in transport are the unloading and loading. That is where you, let's say, make the difference in either the product is damaged or not. So we still need people there. So you get different jobs.
Yeah. And on a more general note, when it comes to Hyperloop development program, if you see how much effort and energy it took until we could fly, or until we reached the train system that we have nowadays, or even if you see how much development there's still going on for the automotive industry. I mean, there are so many reasons not to do Hyperloop or Cargoloop or whatever loop you're thinking about. So therefore, it does make sense that we as a company, but also as an ecosystem, are putting research and effort into this. I mean, you can, I think, easily generate 999 ideas why you would not have to do this. So we are having this one idea why we do want to have to do this, because we definitely believe in it. And yes, of course, there will be many struggles and many difficulties on the path from now until having this Hyperloop completely working. But yeah, we're just willing to do that, and that makes this journey super exciting.
Yeah, and also to add on that, I think one of the founders also from Hardt did some research. I think until 2050, we need 70,000 billion euros to invest in logistic systems. So it's not even in competition with the current modalities. It's something we just need. We need more capacity to transport goods from A to B. We get more people on this planet. Yeah. There's more demand for goods. So. And that's why we also say it's not an or. It's not, the Cargoloop is not replacing, let's say, trucks in that sense immediately, or let's say trains. We just see it as an end. It's also adding to the number of possibilities which we need to fulfill the need of the consumer. Still, there will be enough goods which can be transported on the more traditional way. Yeah.
So the trucks that are freed up because they don't have to haul fruit and vegetables will be transporting other materials.
Yeah, my point is a capacity add-on. We need more transport capacity for the future. And this is just another modality with their own characteristics, which can help in, let's say, also fulfilling the needs of our consumers for the future. Yeah.
Great.
It is.
Yeah. As I said, I'm very much looking forward to eating that apple. I'll be following this project with a lot of interest. Rick, Edwin, thank you very much for your time and for sharing this exciting technology with us.
Yeah. Well, let's agree that from 9 years of today we'll be eating that apple together. I think it's a very particular sound if you bite an apple. So. Podcast 9 years from today on will be that bite in the apple that we're going to do together with an apple. Yes,
excellent idea.
And then I will bring some flowers also.
Flowers, apples, parcels, whatever you like.
Great.
Okay, thank you for your time also.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Does Logistics Matter? For more on trends and innovations in supply chain and logistics, visit our blog on www.logisticsmatter.com. This podcast was produced by Dimitri Vleugel. The music is based on a sample by Ruggerman and produced by Michael Spengler. This episode was supported by Hardt Hyperloop. Hardt is a Delft-based scale-up developing the Hyperloop, creating an on-demand, affordable transport system with which goods and people can travel with speed and ease, emission-free, safe, and accessible to everyone.